So
yeah. So how about this? Welcome to Masters of the Fly number 6. Hi, Lou. Hi, Eric.
hey, David. Hard to
David.
believe we've been through. And hey, Eric. It's hard to believe, well, this is our 6th session. Our next one on May 2nd with James Prozik is our last of this winter spring season. So thanks for everyone who's been here for more than one of these sessions. We're excited this is going to be a really special one.
Yeah. So, in case you guys haven't noticed, I have a different background than usual. I'm broadcasting from Belize, so if the reception is a little spotty, I apologize. Don't forget, if you guys want one of these, don't forget to write to me and Lou, and we'll be happy to send you one. Masters of the Fly bumper sticker. All the flies that we've used or that we've had tied the past couple weeks, we're going to create some content over the summer using each one of those flies to hopefully catch some fish. And very quickly, so we can punt everything along, I just want to thank Tail Fly Fishing Magazine, and everybody should buy the next issue of Tail Fly Fishing Magazine because it features Masters of the Fly. Thank you. It features Masters of the Fly. Lou wrote the piece and I photographed the piece in their In the box column. So please join us for that, or your Buy Tail magazine for that. Actually, subscribe, just don't buy one issue. American Saltwater Guides Association, the Saltwater Edge, saltwaterflies.com, Howard Film, thank you. And Tony and Clay, as usual, your help has been amazing. Lou, let's move on.
Yeah, great. I think let's move on. All of you who've been on before know our good friend Eric Schatzker, who will be moderating the session tonight. Tonight we've got Tony Friedrich on, who is the vice president of the American Saltwater Guides Association, but is more importantly just an incredible fly fisherman, and fly tying innovator. I'm really excited for tonight's session. For those of you who are trying to figure out what the MTFBWU fly means, it's May the Force be with you, and Tony made it up on the spot when we first talked about this fly.
There's no name. They asked me and I don't know. I'm a Star Wars nerd, so that's the first thing I thought of.
So we're really super excited to turn it over to Tony and to Eric and take this away. So enjoy, everyone. Hope you have a chance to tie along with Tony. If not, we certainly will, keep this video on YouTube so everyone can follow along after the fact. But this is going to be a really innovative session. So thank you for joining us. All right, with that,
enjoy.
Let's take it away. Eric, let me hand it over to you.
Thank you, Lou Yen. Tony, I think the best place for us to begin is with the fly. I have a lot of questions for you, and I think some people are going to be surprised by your answers, but we'll get there in good time. Right now, however, I see something unusual happening in the vise. I kind of think I know what that is. So why don't you tell us what it is you're going to tie, tell us what's happening now and what we can expect over the next 45 minutes or so.
Okay, cool. My name's Tony Friedrich. Thanks everyone for tuning in. This fly looks incredibly complicated. It is not. This is a new hook by Arex. It's the PR 378 Gb Swimbait Hook. That GB's for Gunnar Brammer. He's an incredible fly tyer and spent years tying this hook. And, for the longest time, we could never make really good weedless flies. You could use the Texas worm hooks. There was just never enough space. It was never quite right. So finally, they designed a hook that's got two really cool things. It's got a real long platform in the front. And if you notice, the hook is well above the eye. So when the fish goes to bite it, the hook won't roll like it did with some other hooks. And we've been catching some fish on this. It's proven pretty effective. So this is a pretty slick little hook here. I hope everyone was able to get them. And we're going to start this actually with a 20 millimeter, 25 millimeter, whatever, game changer shank. And you're going to put it in the vise with the open part. Okay, that's the part that you're going to put in the vise. The round closed part will be flat, parallel to the base, and you're going to grab your mono thread. This is about as basic as it comes. This is 7 millimeter medium clear mono thread, and I'm just going to put these on so I can actually see. It's a little dark in here.
Tony, should we tease everybody with a look at the finished product?
Sure. So the fly is actually pretty. It's a pretty slick little fly. When you're done, can everybody see that? So this is basically like a giant bull minnow, killifish, whatever you want to call it. But in actuality, it's about a 7.5, 8-inch swim bait. And that paddle tail just goes. When you pull it and that EP fiber pulses. And the neat thing is it's all on a mono platform. So when the fish goes to bite it, it just goes down. And I'm going to show you all how to do that. And I think it has a ton of crossover with making real giant flies for stripers and other pelagics.
And Tony, can you
Yes,
talk a little bit about what the problem you were trying to solve with this fly was?
Sure. So, our fishing's, I'm down in Maryland. Our fishing may be a little bit different than y'all's, but, sometimes we fish in really, really dense cover. And there was just never a fly that you could trust a lot to get into the cover and come out without junk all over it. And in particular, when snakeheads showed up about 10 years ago, they're everywhere now. And they are a hoot to catch, and they live in the craziest places. Most of the snakehead fishing we do is under 12 inches of water, way less than 12 inches of water. The water's, it's actually called Blackwater is the name of the national park where we fish, wildlife refuge rather. And the visibility is terrible. These things live way, way back in the marsh grass. And they hunt by, their lateral line. They don't see hardly at all. And you need a fly that isn't going to get fouled, that can run in less than 12 inches of water, creates big vibration. And this solved a pretty big problem for us, because it's one of those fish it's pretty easy to catch on live bait. It's not so easy to catch on the fly when everything's right. So yeah, and this thing will, with this hook, I'd be comfortable with a striper to like 30 pounds. It's not the thickest hook in the world, but I mean, let's face it, stripers aren't that strong compared to, red drum or snook or stuff like that. So Lu Yin, should I get fired up and started tying on this fly?
Yeah, let's go.
And
that was great, Tony.
Tony, I just want to jump in as you start to tie. And feel free to start talking, but just to remind everybody that that there's a Q&A box at the bottom of the screen. And if you have questions that you'd like us to pose to Tony, or to anybody else for that matter, put them in the Q&A box. And if you have just other random information that you want to share, as we just found out, the Fly Fishing Film Festival tickets are available. That stuff belongs in the chat. So questions to the Q&A box, anything else to the chat, everybody. And fire away, Tony.
Oh,
okay, cool.
One quick thing, Tony, can you move that round thing under your vise off to the side? Is that possible? Awesome.
I can do that.
Great.
Is that good? Okay.
Perfect. Thanks.
All right. So clear mono thread, put the game changer shank in the vise with the end that you have to tie down first. And I promise you all, this fly's not nearly as tough as it looks. So open end with the end that you close down on the bottom, closed in flat parallel. And all you're going to do is just wrap the hook a couple of times with mono. So the reason why I'm using mono thread, it's actually pretty slick. When you tie in mono with mono, if you put super glue on it, it actually welds. It's like a chemical weld. I can't really explain it. I just know it works. So it's real important that we're basically building the body, the platform of the fly. So what I did was, if y'all can see this, this is just a pound of 25-pound mono, about 10 inches long. So if y'all don't have this ready, I just, I'll give you a second, just cut about 10 inches, 20, 30 works. It's not that big of a deal. This isn't a perfect science. So just a quick little tip. If y'all pull the mono off and it's coiled up, if you take just a little Tupperware that's longer than 10 inches, put some water in it, throw it in the microwave for 90 seconds, throw the mono in it, it'll straighten out. It'll stay pretty much straight forever. So that's another little trick with heat. So we learned 2 tricks, the super glue and the heat with the mono, but that'll straighten it out where it won't warp real bad. So what you're going to do is just double the mono so you have a loop and a tag on 2 ends. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick the hook up, right? And I'm going to measure the mono with the hook. So I want this eye to be sitting right off the end of the hook. So my measurement for this loop, I'm going to have this extend past it a little bit. So I'm about right there. Okay. So because I'm about right there, I'm going to lay the mono on this shank on the top. It's very important that you keep it on the top. And the trick to do that is you make 2 or 3 loose wraps and then you pull up. Don't ever pull down, don't ever pull out to the side if you need a material to stay in place. Loose wraps, pull up. 3, 4 loose wraps, pull up, and it's just tightening the whole way, right? So I'm gonna look before I glue this, because once I glue this, it is never going anywhere. Okay. I'm gonna wrap just to the back real quick, and I'm gonna take one more measurement with the hook. Right. So here's, I'm gonna see so y'all can see it better, and I can't see it very good. There you go. Right. And you want about an inch. About an inch off the back. Okay. This is good enough. Good enough for government work. In fact, I'm gonna pull mine a little bit shorter, just so I show you all the right way. So you want that loop, measure it with that hook, and you want it just a little bit shorter than what I did. And this is going to be slightly different for each size hook, right? The 2-aught, the 4-aught. But what you can do if you like this fly is cut like 10 pieces of mono, heat them all up together, and then you're prepped for your next little session of tying. And these are called, I guess, Gunner named them mono shorts. And he just keeps them all in like a big pin and keep like 100 of them at a time, because he's a pretty big production tire. And I'm just keep measuring this and make sure it's perfect. That is perfect. Perfect. So we're going to finish wrapping. Boom, 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 boom. It helps if you make noise when you're tying. I don't know if y'all know that. And then look, here's the third trick, right? So I got this Loctite. Any super glue, any CA glue works. None of them are very much different. But what I'll do with this is I'll just put teeny tiny little drops, right, all over it. And then I'll kind of smooth it out with the little barrel of the applicator. And this thing's going to take forever to dry, right? And I don't feel like waiting forever. So I always have like a little paper towel balled up here, and you just pat it with a paper towel. And that kind of helps work it in too, and it dries a lot faster. Just don't put the paper towel on your shorts when you're tying. So I'm just going to do one more layer of mono, right? And then, so here's the cool thing. You don't really even need to whip finish because you got so much super glue on there, but I'm going to just whip finish, right, y'all? And then take it out of the hook, take it out of the vise, right? And then here we go with the fun stuff. We're going to put the hook in the vise and just kind of let this sit. We're done with that for the time being. So when you put the hook in the vise, you want the jaws of the vise to be right in line with that extension on the eye of the hook, just right parallel with that, okay? Then you're gonna take this. You're gonna take your little mono short that you made with the game changer shank, and you're gonna line it up, because you remember you tied this mono on top, right? So when you put the mono on, that little eye is gonna snug right up right there. Just snug up nice and pretty. All right. So this is done. This is everything was measured. I measured a lot and it's all nice and perfect. Now we're gonna just wrap the mono on this little front part by the eye. Cut that off. And then we're gonna drop this in. And this is where it just kind of starts, it turns into like more of a normal fly, okay? So 1, 2, 3, 4 wraps up. 1, 2, 3, 4 wraps, pull up. 1, 2, 3, 4, tighten it up. And then well before you get to the eye, I have, now remember, I don't know how many of y'all were watching in the beginning, but if I stand up, I feel like I'm gonna knock everything the hell over. So I'm just gonna sit right here. I normally have like a little pair of side cutter wire clippers that I just pop. So it's nice and flat, but I'll cut these with scissors so I don't knock everything to hell.
Hey Tony, just
Yeah.
to clarify, you're tying, you're affixing the game changer and the mono loop to the hook just
Yeah.
on the mono, right? You're not. It's not the shank is not being tied to the shaft of the hook.
The shank is right at the end, and that's a great question, Eric. And the reason why the shank is not, it's the 2 tag ends that we left on the front is what you're affixing to the hook, right? And the reason why you're doing that is because when the fish come and bites it, boom, it acts like a little spring.
Yeah, it swings freely. Yeah.
And it'll just swing up and down perfectly, beautifully fine. Okay, so here comes just kind of like, I don't know how many of y'all have worked with EP before, right? So there's no real trick to this, but when you want to get this on the shank,
So for those who are less familiar, EP is the Enrico Puglisi synthetic fiber, otherwise called EP fiber,
yes,
that we love to tie flies with. It's good
yes,
stuff.
yes. So yeah, this is
So
the
Tony,
stuff
you just
here.
wrap that mono down along the game changer shank now.
Yes, I did. So
Okay.
now, yeah, let's just take a little step back here. So now, matter of fact, this is going to be easier for folks. We've measured it. Everything's right. Okay. The way I do it is not going to be easy. I'm just thinking what's going to be easier for folks. Just pop the hook out real quick. Wrap the thread to the end of the game changer shank, and you stick the game changer shank back in. All right. And the hook's just going to kind of sit like this. And we're just going to build a teeny tiny little platform here. I can do it with it the way that I had it, but y'all probably can't. So look, we're just going to, again, Eric, thank you for reminding me of that. The thread's going to be right at the end of the eye of the game changer shank, and the hook's just sitting here. So you're going to take a hank of EP that's about as big maybe as a pencil. Okay. Not very big at all. All right. And you're going to just fold it right in half. And this stuff is actually pretty easy to work with. A lot of people say it's not. It just takes a teeny tiny little bit of practice. So again, we got just one full hank, about as big as a pencil. And we're just going to cut it right in the middle, right? You're going to put half on the table. And then the other half, this is actually way better to do it for y'all this way. The other half right here, you're going to be attaching this little paddle tail that I'm going to show y'all how to do to the end of this loop, okay? So you want these fibers, and over time with EP, as more and more fish bite it, it'll kind of get thinner and thinner and shorter, and that's just kind of how the material works. So putting a little bit too much on in the beginning kind of just makes it last a little bit longer. And then, so we're gonna put the paddle tail about right here. So you're gonna want the fibers. So imagine if the paddle tail's here, you're gonna want the fibers to hang over and cover about half of that paddle tail, because that'll fix it from getting wrapped around, right? Sometimes when you cast a little bit, that tail will kind of flip around, and these EP fibers will protect it. So we got about, we cut the half, right? And when you measure it and kind of wrap it around the shank a little bit, that game changer shank, you want it to be maybe not 2/3, 1/3, 60, maybe little tiny bit longer, ½ inch longer on the tail end. And you're just going to do a quick 360 and get that hook out of the way. And then, okay, that's it. And then you're just going to take the fiber with your fingers, fold it back on itself, just like a Bob Popovich deal. And this stuff is super easier for you guys who do beast flies, crazy easier to work with than bucktail. So if you want, it'll never move for the rest of the existence on Earth. You just take another little drop of the CA and you're just kind of creating a weld there. And I'll take my little paper towel. And it actually kind of helps it hold the flare. So now's when the fly starts to go really fast, okay? We're gonna do one more tie-in with the other half, and we're gonna trim the heck out of this fly. It's gonna look like, it's gonna look like a sock, a wet sock when we're done tying it. Once we trim it down, it'll actually look really nice. So we're gonna line these EP fibers up, right? A little bit shorter.
Tony,
Yes.
Tony, just a quick question here. There are a number of different EP fibers available. Is this the original that you're using?
So the ones that I'm using, this is a different color with the package. I put it here just in case anybody had that question. These are 3D EP fibers, and the color that I am using,
That's an important point, though. The 3D has some flash in it.
So this is
a little bit of a different texture.
Correct. And the color that I'm using is bait fish belly. 3D bait fish belly. Okay. So if y'all can see me like from the above, you can see how the profile's kind of already starting to be created, right? So the next application is going to be like that long, okay? And then you're going to do the same thing. You're going to fold this over, and we're probably going to lose a little bit. I like to kind of do everything where I'm not cutting much off, but we're probably going to lose a little bit of this off the end. This will be the last tie on this game changer section, and then we're going to start building the body up, and you're literally done with the fly after that. So again, when we take it and we measure it, if everyone can see this, I hope. See, you got that, you're starting to get that nice little bait fish back, right? So we're just going to get this hook out of the way real quick. And this is just a real quick 3 wraps. And I didn't do that tight. And I'm going to take my fingers and I'm going to spread it 360 degrees around, right? And then I'm going to push this back. See how long that is? I don't want it to be that long. So I said I was going to lose a little bit. I'm going to lose about that much. And then we'll do 360 degrees around, take your fingers, pull it right back.
And when you do that, the thread there, is it sort of like a hollow tie where you're really building a dam, or do you worry about going over the EP fibers, or how do you get it to splay the way you want it to?
So really, I mean, that's a good question, Luyan. I think the easiest way to get it to splay the perfect way is to cheat like hell and use the super glue, because you know, when you pat it, it doesn't gunk it up. You know, it's kind of creating that weld and that seal. And just so long as you don't put too much on and you really don't wrap over it, it's just, bucktail is like the hardest thing to do that with, because you know,
Right.
you have to find the right length, the right curvature, the right density. Is it soft? Is it crinkly? Is it, you know, so like it's more in the selection. All this stuff is the same, right? It's synthetic. You just, life is a lot easier.
Mhm.
Of course, it doesn't have a lot of the cool properties that bucktail has, but you know, it's not as hard for, and I know this is like a Northeast crowd that ties, you know, a lot of hollow ties. I mean, Bob's a generational tire. So we're gonna cut this in half again, right? And now, so this is my second piece of EP, 3D belly bait fish. Now we're gonna cut it in half again. And this is where the fly just goes fast, right? So I lied. We're gonna do one more little tie-in point here, and then we're gonna be done. And you'll kind of see where this is going pretty quick. And remember, I said it's gonna look a little bit like a wet sock, but at the end, it's gonna look real pretty.
I remember Johnny King said that about the kinky muddler when he tied it. Like, and that's the beauty of these synthetic fibers is you can kind of build a body and then kind of trim it and mold it into shape in a way you can't necessarily with more natural fibers.
Yeah, you can kind of like, okay, so I just did the last little tie-in. I put the loop over it, right? I'm on the hook now. Put the loop over the hook. You can kind of start to see the body forming a little bit. And this is where the fly goes real fast, y'all. And everybody's been patient. And if anybody has any questions, now's an awesome time, because we're basically doing the same 4 steps over and over again for the rest of the fly. So if there were any questions in the chat or anything, I'm here. So again, we're going to take that quarter piece, the piece we cut in half and cut in half again. And we're going to take that, put it 360 degrees around the hook, tie it up, take your fingers, push it back.
Now, Tony, I'm going to ask the same question that Lu Yan did, because I think I see what you're doing, which is that you're wrapping the mono just on the very, very tips of the. Is that right? You're on the very, very tips of the fibers there.
Yes. And yep. Yeah. It's I'm not going over and pushing it back. But you'll see at the end, guys, like, okay, so this is so dense. This is almost like if y'all like a silly clone, like Bob's silly clone, where he spun sheep fleece and sheep fleece and sheep fleece, and then you pick it out with the bodkin and you trim like a conical head. We're doing the same thing. We're doing the exact same thing, but we're doing it with EP. And the difference between EP and sheep fleece is EP sheds water. So, you know, if you didn't have kind of that silicone over the sheep fleece, it, you know, get real saturated. And so this is the exact same way to build a silicone, but you're just doing it with EP fiber. So again, I have those quarter pieces, right? Put it on, put it 360 degrees around the hook, 3 wraps, pull up, let the thread hang. Make sure that's 360 degrees around the hook. And one of the things that like people always, if y'all can see my thread, people always have a hard time with is that first wrap. That first wrap, they'll trap some of the belly material. And the way to do that, if you watch, I'm swinging my thread back and forth like this when I start that wrap up. And when you would, because these fibers are pretty short. So when you swing your thread back and forth, they kind of knock out of the way and they'll kind of go boing. So every synthetic has kind of like its own properties that make it awesome. And for me, the EP is like, it really, it's stiff when you're messing with it on the vise, but when you get it in the water, the way the water moves through it, there's a lot of this going on, right? It doesn't just stay still. It's not like unique hair, right? It's got a little more life to it. So we're getting close, I swear, to being done with the head of this fly, and then the rest of it is just like, you know, it's pretty much done. So if you're having trouble getting all this back with your fingers, you know, obviously, I have like a little bamboo thing, but like the head of a Bic pen works. You can push back on it. I mean, it's just one of those things, like I've done it so many damn times, it's easier for me just to use my hands. And this will be the last thing. So again, 3 pieces of EP. We're going to cut that in half. We're going to cut it a half, and both of these little half pieces. So we just got 4 quarters. Drop those right there. Drop this right here. And then once you're done with the head, I'm going to whip finish, and I'm going to talk y'all through if you got the paddle tails from Pat Cohen. Pat's a buddy of mine. I mean, he's just such an incredible fly tyer, man. He's a, you know, kind of like a tattoo artist, a fly tyer. He does all this stuff, and he's just incredibly artistic. And him and this guy from Jersey came up with this little paddle tail, and I hope some of y'all got it. And I'm gonna walk you through, like I said, how to put it together. It's not hard at all.
Hey, Tony,
Yeah.
before you do that, there was a question about whether there was any reason you couldn't tie the EP on the Game Changer shank before tying the shank to the hook.
You can. You absolutely can. 100%. I think that's how Gunner does it.
Okay.
A lot of times I'll use like a 10mm shank. And it's really Gunner ties with like a 25, and with the 10mm, yeah, I can see it. I can see you getting impaled on the. I see that too. For normally for snakeheads, I'll tie with the 10mm just because their mouth is so broad. I want a little bit more flex in it, and I guess their jaws are just different than a pike. And Gunner's tying these for pike, so he'll use like a 25. I'll normally use a 10. I used a 20 just so people could see more, I guess, if that makes sense.
Yep. Makes sense.
So we're almost done with the head. And make sure that's 360 degrees around. I'll tell you, like the 4th secret to trimming these things, I'm going to do one. This will probably be it for the head. Yeah, it's going to be it for the head. When you trim this stuff, when you trim any of this stuff, okay, Game Changers, these kind of flies, whatever, a longer kind of swim bait fly, you know, people spend a lot of money on fly tying scissors. I have some expensive ones in here. These are $10 CVS Walgreens hair scissors, and they're just about as long as the fly. So when I make a cut, it's just a straight, perfect, pretty cut. And, you know, it seems like it makes life easier for these bigger flies, right? So we're going to whip finish real quick. I'm just going to put a little teeny dab of super glue on here. All right. So we're going to wait until the very, very end to put the paddle tail on. But if y'all, okay, so if y'all got these paddle tails, right? Can Luyen and the guys, can y'all see the bottom of this? Okay.
Yep. That's great.
If you got the paddle tail, it came like all flat, and you'll see 2 little like wings on it. So what you want to do is get your super glue, and those little wings are right here. Right? They're right here. So you're going to take those wings, you're going to put super glue on, just pick any side, and then you're going to just press them together and hold it. Don't let your fingers get stuck, right?
Yep.
Then this little thing, this little paddle tail will be lying flat. You take your super glue and you put it right here on the bottom of this, and you just bring the thing up and go boom, and it sticks perfect. It takes about 5 seconds to make these things, these little paddle tails. So pretty slick. We'll put this on right at the end, right? The important thing here now is to pick this thing out just with a bodkin. I can't tell you how important this is because these fibers get like all tangled up. They get a little messy, a little goofy. And you just want to pick it out nice and slow so you don't pull anything out. Hopefully you're not pulling anything. If you tied it in right, you won't pull hardly anything out. But you want to get all like the little fibers that are stuck together out of it.
And do you have to do that periodically after you fish it, or once you've done it, it pretty much is?
That's a great thing, Luyan. So like any EP fly that you tie and you fish with, you should probably bring a comb with you in the boat.
Mhm.
And after a couple of fish, you comb it out and it works perfect. Especially fish with teeth, especially fish that thrash around, they'll muck the fly up pretty good, right? So if y'all can see, remember how I said it was going to look like a giant sock? It looks like a giant sock. So now we're going to start to trim it, right? And this is where it kind of makes you feel good about yourself again. So I kind of like pop it out of the hook, right? And if I'm going to look under again, and I'm going to make sure, and there's my loop, everything's nice and safe in there. And I'm just going to kind of take my hand, pick it out a little bit, get everything situated nice. And you can look. All right. So the key to trimming these things out is to go slow, because you can't put it back on. So if you just take your time on like the first 2 or 3 cuts, you'll be a lot happier in the end because you just spent a lot of time on this thing, right? So the first cut, right? If y'all can see that, I'm going to take these scissors. Can y'all see that okay, Luyan?
Yeah, we can see it pretty well. Thanks, Tony.
Okay.
That's great.
So on these cuts, here's like the 3-dimensional shot of it, right? I'm laying these scissors to where I'm starting to get like a little cone head, and just don't be scared. You know, I know it's like a terrifying thing because again, you can't put it back. And I'll just start rotating it. So a lot of times what I see people do when they're trimming flies is they go whack on the top and whack on the bottom. And they're like, I don't know, it doesn't look right. Because you got to go 360 degrees around, right? And I mean, it's just, all it is just practice. So again, just laying that angle on it and just going nice and slow, all right? And I'll kind of pinch it to make it flare out. And and the second pass, I'm not doing the angle here, I'm doing the angle here. Right? I'm half Italian. I don't know. I should have been a hair cutter, I guess, because this is so much these days. Like these days, it's so important to be able to trim because of all the cool shit that we have to work with. I mean, we didn't have this stuff 20 years ago, right? Not even close. Not even close. So the tying it in is almost the easy part, right? The tough part is to just be patient enough. You know, a lot of times the difference between a fly that you look at and you're like, wow, that's a good looking fly, and like, damn, I gotta do a little better on the next one, is how much you trim it. So now, right, I want that little fat bait fish belly, and you can kind of see we're getting there, right? I mean, it's getting pretty close. So we just got to get around the hook. And to get
Tony, would you
around
mind
the hook,
just sort of popping it up in the frame so that everybody can see where you're at now that you've clipped off a bit? Just show it off to everybody so they can see that belly start to take shape.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Now, one of the things that at least I ran into after watching Johnny do the kinky muddler, Tony, and which I saw you doing just a second ago, is you can take the scissors as you are now, right, and run them back from the eye toward the tail. or you can splay out the fibers and come from the tail toward the eye, as you're doing right now.
Yeah.
How do you make the decision between the two?
When I start running, that's a good question. So when I start running out of room, when I'm doing it from this way and it starts getting maybe like a little choppy, and my scissors are kind of maybe starting to hit the hook and be a little annoying. So I'm coming at it from this angle, like boop, this way. So when I turn it over, I just go the opposite angle, right? And now, so instead of down, like I was doing down here, I'm flaring it out. And again, you just kind of keep working it around. I'm gonna just pop this real quick so people can kind of see the end of the fly. And I keep working this back, right? Like I'm cutting it from here on the scissors, not the tip. And you just keep working back and working back and working back. And now you're starting to cook with gas, right? I just got to kind of clean this up a tiny bit here.
So you still want there, just to be clear, you want there to be some sweep to these fibers. You're not trimming them. You're not crew cutting them.
No. See, I mean, there's a, look, if you can see the fly now from above, there's a pretty thick density to this, right? So this is, in the marsh where these snakeheads are, this isn't like an oversized bull minnow, killifish, whatever you want to call it. It's a striped or a banded killifish, and this is a big one, but we get some big ones. So it's kind of got that fat head, tapers down to the tail, right? So we can do one or two things right now. I think probably the best thing to do is we're going to pull all this out of the way, and I'm going to show y'all how to get the tail onto here, and it's not very complicated.
Now, Tony, I'm just going to jump in with a question from the audience here, which is, a gentleman mentions that you might have breezed through the description of the tail gluing a little quickly.
Okay.
And lost a couple people along the way.
No, I'll do it again. Sorry about that. So when you get the tail, it's flat. Okay. It's just.
Do you have one? Do you have one that is flat?
I do. You know what? I don't, because he's out of them. But it's not. I promise you, I can walk them through it, Eric. It's because it's not that much. It's a little.
So what you're showing us right now is what it's going to look like when you're done.
That is correct.
Okay.
And I'm gonna put it right here, and I'm gonna show you how it's kind of it's easier than it looks. So there's a round piece, and then there's two little pieces that stick out to each side. So just pick one of those pieces and put a strip of glue on it, and then bring those two pieces together right where the end meets and press them together. And that's it. And then when you press them together, you got this, and you just bring that little flat piece up, put glue on the bottom of it, and just stick it like that. Boom, and it's done. So you take the two little tags that stick out, put glue on one side, glue them together. And then on this side, there'll be the flat part of the tail. You just put a strip of glue on the two things that you just glued together, and it'll go boom like that, and it'll stick forever. And when you're done, it'll look like this little paddle tail right here.
Cool. Do you color that at the end, or it's colored already?
So you can color these with a couple of different things, and I'm going to go through that like at the end when we're doing the final dressing on the fly.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I hate Sharpies. They don't last in water. I use Copic markers, which are these things. I use Copics because I have like a compressor and an airbrush system. So anything that I'm going to coat with this stuff, liquid fusion, I'll use Copic markers. And if I'm not going to coat it, which I'm probably not with this fly, I use real simple fabric markers, which you can get anywhere. And this stuff this ain't coming off ever. It's not like a Sharpie. It's not, because this is just like a suede material. So that's why you want to kind of color it with a fabric marker. You can do some pretty cool stuff. I mean, it's not super complicated to color these things. I'll probably just do this in like a light green, and do the back of the fly in a light green and put a couple little brown stripes on it to look like a bull minnow. But yeah, you can color these anything you want. I strongly recommend fabric markers if you want it to stay. The other stuff will stay for a couple of fishing trips and you'll be done. So, so super quick.
Tony,
Yes.
before you continue, sorry, this same gentleman has a question. Does it have to be the paddle tail, or could you go with something like a Zonker bunny strip?
I wouldn't. If I wasn't going to use, I'm doing all of this for the paddle tail, right? Because, you know, how many times have you been on a boat and the guy's using spin gear and you're just hammering them on a paddle tail, right? A Zonker strip is, I mean, even if you put mono through it, even if you stab it and put a mono support and burn the end and, you know, do all that stuff like people do for Zonkers, man, I can't imagine that not wrapping. And then that weighs an awful lot, and it can kind of off keel the fly. So what I would do if you don't want to use a paddle tail is I would tie another piece of EP on the other side of the bend where I'm going to tie the paddle tail. Like just put another piece of EP in and make the fly a little bit longer, or don't tie anything on it and just have the EP hang over the end of it. Right. But I would not use the Zonker strip. I think one of the biggest things about these is they keel right. You know, even with this paddle tail, that hook is just always riding up right where you want it. So I do not recommend doing that. I wouldn't do a Zonker. It's just gonna weigh too much, but that's a good question. So easy as pie, right? You put the eye of the hook in your vise. Okay, get all this EP fiber out of the way. And you got the mono end right here, right? So we're gonna pull all this out of the way. That's about as easy as it gets. Make sure it's over the hook. And you're just gonna wrap it like you were tying a beast fly, right? So this is the cool part. And I'm gonna kind of stop right here. This is where it gets kind of neat. So if y'all can see that, and I don't care, I got a couple of EP fibers in there, it's no big deal. I'm gonna put a little glue on here because I know I got it right and I want it to weld up. I'm gonna show you something cool. So again, this all acts as a platform for the center section of the fly, right? So the further forward you wrap, or the further backwards you wrap, is going to say how much this will go up and down when a fish bites it, right? You can use these things if you want. I didn't use these because then we're just getting crazy complicated. But if you want to do a huge fly, this is a stainless steel jewelry crimp. You can buy those on Amazon. They're not very expensive, but you slide this on and you crimp it just like you were crimping something for offshore gear, right? And you'd put a crimp here and here. There's no need for that for this fly. But how far you go back on this is how much flexibility you have, right? So I got a lot of flexibility in it, and I'm gonna butt it up a little bit more, okay? And you see it's like not quite as much. Couple more turns, and I'm gonna work this to the back, right? That's about right. That is just about perfect. You want it right up against the end. Mine popped off real quick. There we go. There, it's perfect. It's straight. That's exactly what you want. About as easy as it gets now, right? You take the paddle tail, and the ones that I told him to get y'all were the large size. You'd want to trim it down. You want to take about ½ an inch off it, okay? Off this end for this fly. If I was tying it on a 6/0, I would use the whole thing, but just about a ½ an inch on the chamois. Take that off, and then all you're gonna do is just lay it flat, right, with this pointed down, and just wrap it a couple of more times, and we're pretty much done. We're gonna stick eyes on this thing, put a marker to it, and we're done. Get that EP out of the way. And we're gonna do one more little drop of CA. And so the beauty of this stuff is, you honest to God, you don't have to whip finish. It's this mono, it's got this whole weld going on. It ain't slipping, it ain't going anywhere. Matter of fact, it'll be there forever and a day, and you just don't have to worry about it. So we're gonna turn it around, and we're gonna take our little comb that I showed Lou before, and we're gonna run through it. We're gonna put some eyes on it, and we're done.
Tony, you were moving so fast. I turned my head away and missed what you did. Did you whip finish the mono on the end there?
When you put the CA glue on the mono and you dab it, it's like concrete. So you can whip finish if it makes you feel better, but it's like you really don't need to on the end. I mean, it ain't ever going anywhere. So no, I put glue on it, and I did like 6 or 7 more wraps, patted it dry, and I just cut it.
Hey, Tony.
Yes, sir.
Hey, when you get a moment, it's so cool how that tail gets done, but I would really love to see you do a trim on that tail so that everybody knows how to trim it back before tying it in. That would really be helpful.
On this part?
On the paddle tail.
On the paddle tail, the trim.
I'd love to watch you trim it. Yeah.
I don't know, because you're talking about just cut a ½ inch off it? Like, because all I said to trim it was just take, so like, I was just talking about like taking it from this, like cutting a ½ inch off, like on some, like right here.
Okay.
Not trim it. So,
okay, gotcha. Just for clarification, thank you.
Yeah, cool, man. So we were just about done. It doesn't look pretty enough for me right now, so I'm gonna trim it up a little bit more with this tail on it. I don't know what y'all like to use to put eyes on flies. I like this E6000 stuff is pretty daggone impressive with its holding power. So I'm gonna just drop some eyes on it super quick.
So this has been a running theme or discussion, Tony, in our recent sessions. What do you think about eyes? Like, are they so we feel good about the fly, or do the fish actually key in on the eyes, in your opinion and experience?
I mean, it totally depends on the fish. I think generally speaking, where we fish, isn't that dissimilar. I think that there's dirty water days and clean water days. Generally speaking, I think fish feel the vibration. And, if you're in the Bahamas, maybe they can see it from 10 or 15 feet away. If you're by me, maybe they see it 3 feet away. And they'll zero in on it. And probably the last 2-3 feet, maybe 1 foot, if it's a real dirty day. that's when they take a look at it. And so generally speaking, fish with teeth are gonna swallow things, so they're gonna aim for the eye. I mean, fish without teeth are gonna swallow things and aim for the eye. Fish with teeth are gonna slash, right? So I mean, I would think that eyes are important, especially with like stripers and other fish that we catch that are like vacuum eaters, because that's what they're aiming for. I would suggest this, and I know y'all don't catch a lot of these fish where you live, but why does a redfish have a spot on its tail? Why do so many species of fish have a spot on their tail if eyes aren't important?
Good point.
I'm just wondering if anybody knows that. Let me know. Give me an info at saltwaterdives.org. I'd love to hear it. But yeah, I mean, to me, that's what they use. That's what they used to aim. That's what they used to aim, right? I mean, I don't know. I put eyes on my stuff.
Tony, unrelated to eyes, another question here. Do you ever add, you were talking about fishing this fly in 12 inches of water.
Yeah.
In which case it would not require any weight, but in different applications, would you add weight to the shank?
No, let me show you something awesome about this hook, right? This is the coolest thing ever. I'm so anti rattles in my flies, not because they don't work, but because they break. And when they break, your fly falls apart. And it's infuriating. So in the infinite wisdom of Gunnar Brammer, who designed this hook, he put angles in this. If y'all can see it, it's not like a semicircle.
Right. I noticed that.
That angle right there holds a rattle perfect.
Huh.
And if something hits it, you can put it on the inside, or you can put it on the outside, whatever you want. And if something hits it and breaks that Pyrex, that glass, you just knock it off and put another rattle on. So it's pretty cool. Instead of just the fly being ruined. Yeah. So if I was going to weight this fly, if I wanted it to nose down like a clouser, you could put lead wraps, you could bury a cone in the EP in the front. You do whatever you want. If I wanted it to stay true to keel, I'd just do some lead wraps right here. I'd do lead wraps right here if I just wanted it to stay true on that keel. Because again, this whole hook is a swim bait. So like every time you've been fishing anywhere you fish and you say, damn, I wish I had a swim bait for my fly rod because my buddy's straight slaying them over here. You have one now. Like that's, you know what I mean? Like you don't really want to mess with it a hell of a lot. And if you're just if you're like, man, I gotta tie I like my hollows. I like my bucktail deceivers. You want to put your northeast flare onto it. You can do all of these things with everything I showed you. Just do it with bucktail, or do it with Steve F blend. I just like this stuff for different properties and kind of what I'm fishing for. And I'm gonna do a final trim on this so y'all can see. I'm kind of pulling it all out, like teasing it out again with my fingers. And then I'm going to do like a little final trim. And then I'll just put a little tiny bit of marker on it and we're done. Let me get my big scissors here. So what I'm doing now is I'm holding the fly like in the palm of my hand. And I'm kind of mushing it down with my thumb. Because now I'm just down to the profile, right? That's the profile that I want right there. And this sucker's just about done.
Tony, is there any chance that bluefish will bite off that paddle tail?
Oh God, yeah. What are you kidding? Is there any dude? Correct me if I'm wrong, but an entrepreneur put his car in orbit around Mars. and I'm almost 50, and I've never seen anything that a bluefish can't bite in half. I mean, like, if somebody's found something, let me know, because they're really tough on stuff. Yeah, man, it would snap that off like a Snickers bar.
So
Absolutely.
if that happens, can you revive that fly by putting another paddle tail back on?
Yeah, just tie another paddle tail back on. It's like Legos. It's the easiest thing in the world. It's no big deal at all, man. I have knocked one of these things off, back casting, like in the marsh, and hitting like a little scrub pine that was right on the edge of the marsh, just whacking it with the end of the fly when it was behind me. I didn't see it. Knocked the tail right off, throw it in the tackle bag, go home, put it in the vise, wrap another tail on, a little bit of super glue, you're good to go. So this is where, this is where we're almost done, guys. And I'll just show you real quick. This is what I do. And I'm just going to do this in Copic because it's got a little more color, even though it won't last forever. So my eyes are on there real good.
Tony, this is awesome. I just want to remind everybody that we're going to keep going, and please stick around. Tony, if it's okay with you, we'll go a little while longer past the 9 o'clock hour and keep watching you do this. And we'll
we're seriously, we are done in 2 seconds, dude. If it's that late, I can't see it on my phone.
You did a great job. You timed it perfectly.
Don't worry about the time. Don't worry about the time.
Not at all.
Now you were doing, what was that color you had there? Sort of a yellowy green?
It was, these things come numbered, YG03, and it's kind of my God, look at you. No wonder why Luyan got you to do this. Yellow green. Jesus, Eric, that was impressive. I didn't even know. That's incredible. So, bull minnows have those little stripes on them. EP takes that real good. And then I'll just kind of look over here and I'll know where to start the stripes on this side. And I promise you the snakehead or whatever you're going to tie this for is not going to say those stripes don't line up perfect.
That's a good looking fly, Tony.
Is there a certain amount of stripes you want to have on any particular fly?
I think the bigger the bull minnow, kind of the more muted they are, generally speaking. I think mackerel, stuff like mackerel, little scombrids, they're gonna have a ton of stripes, so kind of those mackerel stripes. Any of these killifish or whatever are just gonna have like broad stripes. You got basically 2 different species in the marsh by us. Obviously striped killifish more pronounced. But I mean, this is it, folks.
That's gorgeous, Tony.
That is
gorgeous.
Beautiful.
And again, I mean, I think the beauty of this fly, I remember talking to you in our earlier conversation, but you can throw that fly into heavy cover. The way that you could throw, like a Texas rig worm or, something like that. And it's going to come out without weed and it's going to catch fish.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And here's, I'm a fish. I bite down on this thing. Blam.
Yeah.
I mean, there's the business end right there, and it's a super durable fly. It swims perfect. With the whole keel concept with the hook, and it lets us fish places we were not able to throw a fly last year because these hooks just came out a couple months ago. So
that's great. Tony, can you get one down here to me in Belize by tomorrow morning for snook fishing?
Yeah.
I was going to say for snook, that would be great.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, you could just drag it in the mud and you'll never snag a thing.
No.
Hey, Tony, a question here. Would the minnow tails from Pat Cohen work on these flies?
So the minnow tails, Oof. It depends on which size you get. He has like forked tails, the minnow tails that are forked, and then he has the ones that are just kind of more straight, little bit of a profile to them. I would use the one that's just kind of straight with the little belly to it, and yeah, that would work. Any of these suede things that Pat does will pretty much work. You know, again, I just with the snakeheads in particular, and with a lot of stripers in the marsh and speckled trout. So like there's places where we fish where we can, in the same drift, get a striper, a speckled trout, a red drum, a flounder. Now over the years, the likelihood goes up and down because I think every year is different. But out of all of those, you know, in like 6-7 feet of water, if y'all fish any back bays or anything, I don't know anything that's a lot better for a subsurface lure than a paddle tail, right? Like maybe I guess a sluggo. So that would be Pat's solid tail. But yeah, I mean, these things they're pretty silly. Like, you know, when you throw it in the water and you give it like 2 strips, you'll just look down in the water and laugh and be like, holy mackerel, like where have you been all my life? You know, and again, like I don't know if y'all have super clear water, but this thing like rings the bell. That's what those paddle tails are for. I don't think the swimming action is the number one thing. I think it's the vibrations that they create and make the fish swim over to see what's going on. And that's, you know, this thing pushes a lot of water. The last thing that I'll say is, if you want, and it's up to you, you can put like Popovic silicone. You can do one of two things with this. You can put liquid fusion on it, this stuff, and really drive it in here, or you can put silicone and just get like the GE2 silicone, like that you get at a hardware store, clear, and you put like soapy water on your fingers and just put like a little dollop on it, just stroke it back, and that makes the head even tougher and it pushes even more water, but it doesn't add a lot of weight to it as long as you keep the application real thin. And again, it makes it like a little bit more durable, pushes a little bit more water. And if you're fishing like heavy weeds, the weeds don't stick to it as much as can kind of discolor the EP or whatever. But that's the other thing that I would say with this. And if y'all want to do some kind of, you know, giant bunker fly with this, again, I don't know if I'd recommend this like a 50-pound striper, but you know, like a 20-30 pound striper, you can totally do this fly 100% bucktail if you want. Just don't put the paddle tail, put bucktail here instead of the paddle tail. It's more in just like, you know, you have a weedless hook with this massive platform on it, and that's really what I wanted to teach y'all. That's the big thing. And I mean, as long as you know how to get that on there, you know, you can do a million things with this. And these things just came out a couple months ago, so like we're still trying to figure them out.
Tony,
I don't know if that, you know.
Tony, that is such an amazing tie, and I for one can't wait to fish it when we're doing some more media for the Masters of Fly over the summer. And I just really, you know, want to say thank you so much for this demo. It was really spectacular.
Yeah, amazing and super innovative. And, you know, for me particularly, it just, you know, it reinvigorates my whole commitment to fly tying innovation. I mean, that's one of the things that's so fun about saltwater fly fishing in particular right now, is people are inventing stuff that didn't exist even 6, 8, 12 months ago. And it's great to see you at the forefront of all of that. It's really exciting. It's incredible fly.
Yeah, before we go, Tony, before we let you go, I just quickly want to remind everybody to please buy tickets or sign up for May 2nd, James Prosek. He will be, his event is it really promises to be spectacular. So tell your friends and relatives, and bring your kids. It's going to be really great. James is going to talk about his new book, as well as speak anecdotally about fly fishing and how it influenced him moving forward in his career.
Yeah, I mean, James, for those of you who don't know him, he's really one of the great artists of our time, but really more, from a fisherman's perspective or a fly angler's perspective, more importantly, he's really the Audubon of fish. And his newest book, which I just recently bought, is incredible, super interesting. His perspective will be great, and he's a very accomplished fly fisherman. So please join us for our last Masters of the Fly event of the season. And again, huge thank you to Tony, huge thank you to Eric, and the whole Masters of the Fly crew. What a great evening, and thank you, all of you, for joining us tonight.
Yeah, be sure to find tonight's broadcast up on YouTube, and it'll still be on Facebook for our page on Facebook for a limited period of time, and you can see all past episodes on our YouTube channel.
Hey, I'm just going to jump in and ask a quick question because Tony's still going here. Tony, you got the bottle of Liquid Fusion out, right?
Yep.
Okay, so Johnny King, when he was tying the kinky muddler, said that he likes to dilute Liquid Fusion with a little water and get it to the consistency of maple syrup and apply it with a brush.
Yeah.
And if you repeated applications with the brush, and it will soak in and still get that firmness that you're looking for to push water. Do you do that at all?
It was funny. Tom Kaczynski and I were talking about that. And I said, dang, that's a good idea. And he said, I said, how much does he mix it with? And he said, maple syrup. And I'm like, there's one thing I know about, it's maple syrup, right? So actually I just learned that the other day after Johnny King's thing. Normally I'll just heat this up. I have like a little coffee cup heater, and I'll just turn that on and sit this on it, and that thins it out pretty good. And I use this. I got to tell you, like, I'm not a huge fan of the acrylics, the light activated stuff. I mean, I have it, but maybe I'm using it wrong. I don't know, but it seems to me like it cracks a lot more than epoxy. So like, when we used DevCon epoxy, it turned everything yellow. I don't care what anybody said, it turned stuff yellow if you got it out in the sun or whatever. So acrylic comes out and we're like, oh my God, it doesn't yellow. And you're like, hallelujah. And you tie up all these hundreds of flies and you go out, you throw it out, and a fish hits it and it cracks it. And you're like, well, that ain't the greatest thing. And then, just, I don't know. So I love Liquid Fusion. And the other stuff that I love that is like, I use the Liquid Fusion to coat popper heads. Like I'll paint popper heads up. I'll coat popper heads with it. I'll finish off heads like this with it. And if there's something that I have to make completely and utterly indestructible, this is what you use.
Gorilla Glue.
Yeah.
Clear Gorilla Glue. And you just need a fly turner. And I swear you could shoot this with a 22 and it would bounce off. And that's what I want in my flies, right? I mean, it's amazing. We spend all this money on stuff, and this stuff came from like fabric, I think. It's just clear urethane. And then this is from construction, clear Gorilla Glue. And it's better than pretty much everything else that I have.
Yeah.
And the GE silicone is for bathrooms that we use yeah. So like, I get it that Johnny does that, and I'm not surprised he doesn't use acrylics. I mean, they are good for a couple things, but like, they ain't the end all to be all.
Excellent.
Great. Well, with that, Tony, thank you again. Incredible evening. Thanks to everyone for joining us. Thanks, Eric, for moderating. What a great night. And I'm going to be tying up some of those flies, and I'm going to see you, Tony, in May, and put some of those flies to the test.
Yeah.
We'll put you on Snakehead and see what happens, Lou.
Lou, I'm kind of jealous about that. Everybody, don't forget, if you want one of these, all you got.
Let us know. Email us.
No. We have them, we're giving them away right now, and it's just for a limited period of time. So get them while they're hot. Eric, thank you very much. Tony, what a